Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming. I am really excited to be talking today about one of my favorite projects that 80/20 has been able to launch in the last year, which is a behind-the-scenes look at our project with Huberman Lab, which is one of the largest podcasts in the world. We're also going to get into a lot of different things, like what it's like to work with cross-functional partners. I don't know why that's not showing. There we go. And also what it's like to work on a website that serves millions of people all around the world. But before we dive in, I want to take a second to introduce myself. My name is Matt Varghese. I'm one of the partners and the CEO over at 80/20. If you don't know 80/20, 80/20 is a no-code product studio and a Webflow enterprise agency headquartered in Victoria, British Columbia. When Webflow actually relaunched their enterprise program a few years ago, when it was called the Enterprise Partner Program, we were actually one of the first 5 partners that they tapped to pilot that program. And through that time, we've been able to build a really incredible team all around the world of designers, developers, and strategists that work exclusively on Webflow. And since 2018, we've also had the opportunity to help some of the largest companies design, develop, and migrate to Webflow. Companies like Warner Brothers, Pilot.com, Banta, and Flywheel, but also creators like Hassan Minhaj, Ellen DeGeneres, Chance the Rapper, and of course, Dr. Huberman and the Huberman Lab team. And while we're going to talk a lot today about the Huberman Lab podcast, I also want to introduce one of the partners that we ran this project side by side with, which is a company called Double Up. Double Up is a boutique growth agency headquartered also in Victoria, British Columbia. Aiden, the founder, is actually in the audience today. And should you want to talk to him, he'll be around at the conference. But they're a growth agency that works with a lot of companies and creators to help nail down their content, web, and conversion strategy. Double Up also has a really impressive track record working with other creators and health-focused brands like Dr. Rhonda Patrick and Peter Attia. And together, we teamed up on this project to help combine insights and expertise on web strategy, design, and development to bring it to the Huberman Lab podcast. But before we go any further, I also want to take a second and introduce what the Huberman Lab podcast is. If you don't know what it is, I'd be shocked because they are the largest health podcast in the world. Oftentimes, like many days of the week, they are one of the largest podcasts in the world, top 10 or top 5 across all categories. Their reach is really massive, spanning millions of people all around the world. And I've been personally a huge fan of Huberman Lab before the podcast, or before they even came to us to talk about the website. So when they reached out, I was ecstatic about the idea of working together. So how it all started is a question I get asked quite often. Back in 2022, Ian Mackey, who's the vice president of Cycom Media, he'll actually be joining me at the end here for a Q&A. He was introduced to Double Up and I through a colleague. And Ian came to us with a problem, one that we knew was right up our alley. HubermanLab.com at the time was getting a lot of traffic. In the beginning days of Huberman Lab, the content library was relatively small and easy to manage. But the podcast just exploded in popularity, and so did the content library. And this exponential audience growth meant that more content was being added and more eyes were coming to the website quickly. But the issue was that there wasn't a clear user journey on the website. In the original days of the website, it was a pretty simple, straightforward WordPress theme that worked pretty well when there were 10 to 30 episodes. But as the audience exploded, so did the demands that the audience so did the content library and the demands that the audience had about the website. Finding the right information became harder, and search results often didn't return the best result for their query. And this became a huge pain point for the audience overall, one that we knew we needed to solve. As Huberman Lab's content library grew too, their business and goals expanded rapidly as well. They introduced a premium podcast subscription where users got access to things like AMA episodes, transcripts, early access to live events, and more. And I have to highlight this. A significant portion of that revenue actually goes to fund science research all around the world. Just last year, they donated over $500,000 to research labs, and this year they're set to donate even more. But they also launched the Neural Network newsletter, which is a once-a-month newsletter that concisely covers a topic that they've covered on the podcast before in a way that the audience really loves. But with this expansion, with the main podcast, the premium podcast, the newsletter subscription, and then just a rapidly growing audience, they needed a seamless way to bring everything under one roof. With over 150 plus podcast episodes and 300 plus hours of content at the time we started working together, users just struggled to quickly find the science and information that they were looking for. And what ended up happening is as Huberman Lab's popularity grew, many people just turned to unofficial sources for answers. And we saw this happen a lot early on. People that were looking for Dr. Huberman's official content and Huberman Lab's official content, people were trying to capture that SEO traffic coming that way. And unfortunately, what that led to was a lot of misinformation or information just taken completely out of context, which in the frame of health is really critical to get right. The Huberman Lab team they really value users being able to have the full set of information in context to make the best decisions for themselves. In some cases, there were even deepfakes, people using Dr. Huberman's likeness as he's gotten so popular to promote pseudoscience projects like gum that sharpens your jawline. And so this made the need for an official hub for Huberman Lab's content more urgent now than ever. And the Huberman Lab mission is very clear. They say this at the top of every episode, to bring zero cost to consumer information about science and science-related tools to the general public. This mission resonates really deeply with Aiden's team at Double Up and my team at 80/20, because it's exactly the type of work that we love doing. We wanted to push this mission forward in a meaningful way and apply our skills on the web in a way that not only impacts the business, but also impacts the society around us and the users coming to the website. And so we knew that creating a central hub for all the official Huberman Lab content was critical, but there were a lot of different pieces coming into the website. If you think about a business like this, there's a lot of different content elements. There's the titles, the transcripts, the newsletters, guest episodes, Ask Me Anything episodes, the web pages themselves, timestamps, clips. Bringing all of that together in one website wasn't just about simplifying things. It was about creating a really easy to navigate website that would surface all this information. And so we had to ensure that everything worked seamlessly in a way that was easy to discover and easy to access. So our goals were clear. First and foremost, we knew that we had to improve search on the website. As the podcast grew, this is where a lot of the website issues lied. The previous version of the Huberman Lab website did indeed have search functionality, but it wasn't robust enough to serve the rapidly growing demands of the audience. The search engine that they had only searched against episode titles, but it had nothing to do with the episode transcript or other content available that is, could be surfaced otherwise. And this led to users not always finding exactly what they were looking for, and it minimized engagement on the website. Both Double Up and 80/20 knew that we had to fix this as a critical part of the website. Second, we also wanted to focus on improving content discovery and engagement on the website. On that note, we wanted to improve the time users spent on the website. If they came looking for information about sleep, what could we surface to them that might be helpful and keep them fully engaged on the website? If they're here for sleep, maybe we could show them a sleep topics page, which had various information about clips, episodes, and subtopics related to sleep. If they wanted to just search the entire website for sleep in general, maybe we could allow them to filter their search by things like a solo episode where Dr. Huberman goes through peer-reviewed articles about sleep. Maybe they want a guest episode with someone like Dr. Matthew Walker. Things like this are things that we were thinking through when we wanted to bring the new website to life. The last thing that we wanted to highlight and focus on as a goal was optimizing email signups and premium subscriptions, which are two pillars for growing and sustaining a content business like this. Capturing emails is not just critical for a business like Huberman Lab, but all companies and creators, because it gives you a direct line to your audience. With so much content competing for attention online, being able to bypass an algorithm directly and engage with your most interested fans allows you to share important updates about your business. For them, it's things like newsletters, updates, and more. And as I mentioned earlier, the premium subscriptions also go beyond just obviously advancing the business itself, but a significant amount of that revenue goes directly towards supporting science research. And so we knew that these two things were things that we really need to focus on as well going forward. And so with that in mind, we knew that we needed a roadmap to get there. When working in these cross-functional partnerships, it's really critical to align on a comprehensive roadmap. We needed to know where each team's role started and ended and how our efforts would sync. This meant a lot of back and forth with Double Up to ensure that our work informed theirs and vice versa. Double Up's responsibilities here were clear. It included things like content strategy, determining what information should take priority on the websites, and they defined new pages altogether on the website, like topics and subtopics pages. But also other things like SEO and information architecture, planning out the sitemap, what content goes where, and how do we make sure that organic search is prioritized. And then also wireframes, creating the low-level structure of the website to help guide our design and development process. For us, we're thinking through all things design, UX, and development. For design, we're thinking about what's the new design direction look like, and how do we advance the visual identity, but also make sure that it aligns with the existing brand and still feels polished and intentional. For development, we know that Webflow is scalable, but how do we make sure that it's performant, especially from a CMS perspective, because this has a lot of rich content. Both teams had a lot of questions to answer and think through, but we knew we had a clear path forward, which was delivering an exceptional experience for the audience. This slide right here is actually pulled directly from the proposal that we shared with Ian at the very beginning. I don't have time to get into the full thing here, but the one thing I wanted to highlight is the thing that Aiden's team and our team were thinking through at the very beginning was, how do we keep the Huberman Lab audience at the very center of every decision? From the start, everything revolved around making sure that the website that we were building provided the most amount of value to end users. The goal wasn't to bring the people to the website just once. We wanted to keep them coming back and keep them fully engaged. And so with this in mind, we had a clear vision of how to make this happen. But coming up with that strategy was only half the battle. The real magic happened when our teams actually got to work together to bring this to life. For us, cross-functional teamwork here was essential. 80/20 collaborates with other firms quite often to make sure that we're bringing the best possible work to our clients. And whether you're a strategy firm, whether you're working with a strategy firm like DoubleUp or an SEO agency or a design shop, whatever it might be, you need to have a really clear path and understanding of what working together looks like. For us, our collaboration with DoubleUp was key, and it couldn't have gone smoother. With a lot of their key work complete in the early stages of the project, like content and conversion strategy, SEO and wireframes, and more, DoubleUp had set the stage for us. Their foundation gave us exactly what we needed to take the reins. That work informed our work, from design to development to migration to launch. And while DoubleUp and 80/20 had a really tight collaboration with each other, like we always do, we had an incredible partnership and collaboration every step of the way with the Huberman Lab team as well. And I have to give their team their flowers here, because similar to both DoubleUp and 80/20, they are a small but mighty group. And what you see here is almost the entire team behind one of the largest podcasts and most successful podcasts in the world. And the team's also one of the most talented I've ever worked with. They came to the table, I remember early on with calls with Ian, with a clear vision, and that they were evaluating Webflow as a potential path forward for their new website. They also have a deep understanding of their space and audience overall, which made the conversations that we were all having really rich and insightful. But on top of that, they're just great people. They're super easy to work with. I'm sure we've all worked with clients that are great and maybe not so great, but it's really fun to be able to work with clients that you actually have a great partnership overall with. And so the Huberman Lab team was involved every step of the way on this project, and that was really helpful because a lot of this project was about designers, developers, and strategists collaborating really seamlessly on the fly. With such a synchronized group here, including Ian, we kept feedback loops really tight, which helped us move fast and bring ideas to life really quickly. Ultimately, this felt like a kind of collaboration that was a dream scenario for us. Everyone is actually aligned, working towards shared goals and a shared vision. In addition to collaboration, though, I often get asked about the logistics of a project like this. How do you manage a website that serves millions of people, that has a lot of rich content, that operates at scale, and has so many moving pieces and stakeholders? And so I wanted to give a quick look at some of the tools we use to keep everything running smoothly. I don't have time to get into everything, but if you have questions, there will be a Q&A at the end. But first of all, Airtable was huge for us. If you are an employee at 80/20, which I have a few in the room, you've probably heard our head of dev, Max, talk about the idea of using Airtable as a single source of truth on a website, especially for complex web projects. And we used exactly that approach. For this migration and all migrations alike, and this is a real screenshot from our Airtable setup, Airtable tracks everything from sitemap changes, URL updates, and redirects, which are all really critical in a cross-platform migration for preserving SEO and making sure the migration doesn't hurt site performance. In addition to that, with over 150 plus podcast episodes and tons of data, we needed a system that kept everything organized and made sure nothing was overlooked. And then lastly, we used Airtable to help us catalog timestamps and clips, which served as a backbone for our search engine. Even now, to this day, Airtable serves as a big backbone for a lot of integrations on the website, keeping everything running smoothly and in one place. The next tool we have here is Slack. I know saying we use Slack to communicate is not the most novel and groundbreaking insight, but the thing is, agencies mess this up all the time. Even the simplest projects can fall apart without good communication, and that's something we hear from almost every lead that we talk to. I do all the sales at 80/20, and when I'm talking with a lead, the question I ask a lead at the end of every call, if it's our first conversation, is if we were to work together, what would make you say we were the best damn agency you've ever worked with? And the thing that often I hear more than anything is just getting consistent, transparent communication about where things are at. 9 times out of 10, that's genuinely the case because the agency partner they worked with in the past or the freelancer, whoever it might be, kind of dropped the ball on that front. And that's where Slack becomes essential, not just for us and the client, but for coordinating with our partner DoubleUp. As you can see here, as you can see here in this first screenshot in the background, we have our external channel with Ian, where we actually keep everything in one place so that he's got full visibility, but very easily into what's going on, what's been completed, what's in progress, and what's next. But we have a second screenshot and a second channel, which is internal between our team at 80/20 and then DoubleUp's team as well, where tasks are assigned to each team member and each one is linked to our project management system. Which brings me to the last tool I want to highlight, which is ClickUp. Project management overall is always really important, but it becomes mission critical when you're working across multiple agencies because the projects become no longer just between you and the client. Suddenly you're juggling evolving scopes, altering timelines, and overlapping deliverables. And that's where ClickUp comes in. It gives us a centralized hub where everything lives, timelines, dependencies, tasks, so nothing gets lost along the way. And you'll see this through line with all the tools that we use to manage a project like this. Centralization is really critically important when you're managing a project of this size at this scale with this many partners. And so ClickUp allows us to do things like Gantt charts, which are really helpful for transparency to visualize timelines and make sure that every milestone aligns, even when timelines shift between teams. And by keeping those interdependencies clear, ClickUp helps us prevent bottlenecks and stay on track overall. So in short, when things get complicated, ClickUp is a tool that we rely on to keep things running smoothly. Great project management in general is critical to keeping a project of this size on track. Aiden and our project manager, M, who's in this room, did an incredible job at managing everything, from coordinating cross-agency collaboration to ensuring nothing slipped through the cracks and organizing meetings to gather feedback. Because for us, a lot of this project is about iterating and adapting really quickly, which a tool like Webflow really allows us to do. Both DoubleUp, 80/20, and the Huberman Lab team relied on these really tight feedback loops to make sure every iteration brought us closer to a world-class experience. Well, we met on Zoom for some conversations with our team around the world. We also relied on some in-person collaboration with Ian in California to help make sure that we were ideating and bringing the best websites to life, the best website possible to life, even quicker. But speed and collaboration aren't the only things that matter. Having the right tools to connect to everything is really critical as well. And that's where integrations come into play. With Webflow, we didn't just build faster. We were able to supercharge the experience by integrating advanced tools to unlock even more. Like I've said before, search was one of the biggest challenges on this website, and it was absolutely critical for us to get it right. With the content-heavy website like this, it's really important that users were able to find exactly what they were looking for quickly and easily. In V1, like I said, search relied on episode titles to actually operate. For example, if a user typed in the word sleep, the word sleep needed to be in the title exactly in order to surface that episode, and if it wasn't, no related content would be able to be surfaced. For V2, though, both teams brought in richer content, the entire data set, like transcripts, timestamps, AMA episodes, newsletters, topics, and more. And we did it in an organized way that actually took the taxonomy and factored it into search. Our goal is to supercharge search by surfacing the most relevant information based on any query entered. And so the question we asked was, how do we make this all searchable and indexable in one place? And that's where we introduced Algolia. Algolia gave us superpowers to search, filter, and organize content across the board. And I have to give the DoubleUp team a lot of credit here. They did an incredible job with the manual taxonomy work required to go through the content library like this and make sure that every piece of content that we have was well organized and taxonomized. And what this led to is now a simple query like sleep can now return a much richer, more targeted result. And users can now drill down and filter content by like timestamps, AMA episodes, solar guest episodes, newsletters, and more. And this just goes to show that we thought about this to help the users go much deeper on the website and specify exactly what they're looking for instead of just being shown the full episode every time. This helped us supercharge search overall because we indexed everything in the library, not just the episode titles, and it led to much richer search results overall for the end user. And the outcome was that it was now easier than ever for users to find specific science information. And we were able to do it in a way that not only was functional, but looked visually very sleek. The beauty of using a platform like Webflow is that it lets you build for today and tomorrow, not just for small businesses and enterprises, but everything in between. With Webflow, we're not limited to rigid systems or outdated tech. Instead, it gives us the ability and flexibility to grow alongside the Huberman Lab business instead of hitting a ceiling along the way. This slide is also pulled from every proposal that we have, and it highlights exactly why we're such fans of Webflow. From things like CMS scalability to seamless integrations, the ability to handle surge traffic, hosting and security being managed, and more. Webflow gives us everything that we need to grow alongside the client. And that's where our work really begins. With Webflow's flexibility, we can keep evolving the website to meet the needs and demands of the users. And so both of our teams have actually continued to support the Huberman Lab team. Both DoubleUp and 80/20 are very lucky and grateful to be Huberman Lab's agencies of record to help them with strategy, design, and development, even past the website launch. So whether it's building in new features, designing improvements, refining the conversion strategy, and more, we're right there with them, keeping things moving forward every day. One example of this is one example of our support is the recent launch of Dr. Huberman's new book, Protocols, which I will plug. It is now available for pre-order, and you should 100% go buy it. DoubleUp handled the wireframes and the strategy for this page, and then we designed and developed it and brought it to life for all of their media push, whether it's social media, press, whatever it might be, that was available for users to be able to access to help convert. We also created supporting assets, like a 3D book preview in Spline, because the cover art is really fascinating. And so Anthony, who's also in the room on our team, helped bring that to life. Our role is to stay behind the scenes, taking care of everything the Huberman Lab team needs so they can focus on what matters most to them, which is creating content and engaging with their audience. We also worked alongside DoubleUp to design, build, and launch new experiments to help improve conversion. DoubleUp led the strategic testing through VWO, which I will say, it was before Webflow optimized. We had no idea that was coming. But some of those examples included things like experiments to optimize conversion rates and A/B testing to fine-tune layouts and enhance engagement. The flexibility of Webflow allows us to iterate really quickly, ensuring that the website evolves overall. Because in my opinion, websites are not static. They're constantly evolving to make sure that we are hitting the goals that we've set forth. On the note of goals, though, you might ask, what's actually the impact on the new website? How did things change? We cataloged all the data of the old website, and we're able to compare it to the new website. Before the launch, the website's average conversion rate was around 3%. After the launch, in the month of launch, it skyrocketed to 11% on the website, which is a 266% improvement, going from 3% to 11%. And even if we say, okay, it was just a fluke from the first month of launch, if you account for a longer period of time, there's still a drastic improvement. The average conversion rate going forward held steady at 6%, which is a straight double rate of the old site. Huge credit goes to DoubleUp, which is quite literally them living up to their name on the conversion rate optimization there. And they really knocked it out of the park with that result. We were also able to support several key initiatives, including things like driving premium subscriptions with new landing pages to highlight the benefits of the premium membership. We also had the really incredible in-house media team at SciComm build a custom video from Dr. Huberman addressing the audience and talking about the benefits of Huberman Lab Premium and where those funds go. All those efforts had a huge impact on premium subscriptions. We saw a 100% plus increase in average premium signups, which is an incredible result from V1 to V2. And like I said, a significant portion of that revenue actually goes to support science and science research all around the world, which is core to the Huberman Lab mission, something we're really proud to help with too. We also saw 100% plus more searches per day. People were actually using the search engine and the website the way that we had wanted and intended. And that led to the more users staying on the website longer. We saw the bounce rate go down, meaning users are more engaged with the content and navigating deeper into the website. A beauty of having a client that has such a large audience is that they will not hesitate to let Huberman know exactly what they think about the website, the good and the bad. And so we're able to take all this information about how people are experiencing the website and how they're interacting with it. And what's great about Webflow is we can ship those changes in real time. We're not having to wait weeks to make a change. We can iterate on design and development very quickly and make sure that we're responsive to the user needs. This one right here is actually one of my favorite tweets that we found when we launched the website. It's a tweet from a user named Jenny King, and she highlights how the term cognitive shows up across multiple episodes. Before in the V1 of the website, you wouldn't be able to find all these instances on the old search engine. But with the new search engine, everything is taxonomized, and you can find that information really quickly and easily on the website. And that's exactly the kind of experience we wanted. We wanted to empower users to dive deeper on the website into the content that they care about. And so collectively, we created a searchable central hub for the entire content library that took it from a really simple, straightforward design experience to a really robust experience in Webflow that's easily maintainable and easily scalable for millions of users around the world. At the heart of this project, our goal is to support Huberman Lab's mission in building public trust in science. What made this experience really rewarding was knowing that every design, every page that we built, and every decision we made helped them take that another step forward in pushing that mission forward. And both DoubleUp and 80/20 are incredibly proud to have played a role in making this vision a reality. And honestly, it's projects like these that move beyond just business impact and making effort towards pushing business goals forward, but also just making improvements for users and society around us. And that makes this work so much more meaningful for us. And so wrapping things up, I just want to say we've had such a pleasure working with Dr. Huberman, Ian especially, and the entire broader SciComm media team. It's been such a pleasure for us. They brought a ton of energy, creativity, and trust to the process, which made it really easy for us to do what we do best. And I know it's been such a rewarding collaboration with DoubleUp and I, and one that we're really excited to continue supporting moving forward. And so with that, my talk portion is done, but we are ready for Q&A. And so I want to take a second and introduce Ian Mackey, who is the Vice President at SciComm Media. He is a great client turned great friend. And yeah, we're ready for whatever questions you might have. Sure.
Sorry if you mentioned it in the very beginning,
No.
but just interested in the sales process.
Sure.
And then how did they respond to that final question? that you mentioned?
What would make you the best CM agency we've ever worked with? Yeah, so the sales process, it started back in 2021. Is that the case? Yeah. So we had a lot of conversations in late 2021. It was actually right after a Webflow conference. And I remember going back to my hotel room and working on the proposal with Aiden. And so a lot of that took a lot of conversations because a project of this size, this scale, it actually took longer to close the sales cycle because we wanted to be really intentional about how we approach something like this. And I know do you want to take the part about what would make this the best CM agency you've ever worked with?
Yeah, as Matt said earlier in the presentation, the communication and clear expectations are key for us. We've had other partners that we worked with. When you drop the ball on deliverables that we're expecting, and from the outset, clear expectations, delivered on it, and we also are a team that super tight turnarounds on stuff. We're often recording episodes Fridays, editing them Saturday, reviewing Sunday, and putting out Monday, and their team's always online, and we need that constant access, frankly, which I know is a challenge for some companies, but Saturdays are like a regular work week for us, so we're online effectively 24/7, every day of the week. So just being able to match that energy, our needs, that was one of the things key, first and foremost for us.
Yeah.
One more question. Did you find 80/20, or how was that relationship started?
Yeah, great question. So as he mentioned, our premium subscription's powered by Supercast. Jason Soy, who thanks. The CEO of Supercast. I was just chatting with him about their website and whatnot. They said they use Webflow. And see if that stays on. He said you got to chat with Matt from 80/20. Quickly did a look on their website, and a lot of the clients that they had already had, huge fans of for instance, huge fan of Hassan Minhaj, comedian, knew about the work, didn't know Matt at the time. And so the work really spoke for itself. Aiden on Double Up, obviously Peter, we're big fans, close with him, Rhonda, number of the clients they have. And so frankly, a lot of it was a gut decision. We didn't do like a traditional RFP process, evaluate a lot. It was really, I loved what they said. Work spoke for itself. And one of those things for us is if it didn't work out, we could always end the relationship. Obviously, we haven't. And so it's been great.
Sure. Yeah. Kareem?
Thank you. Matt, I just wanted to know, you mentioned you use both ClickUp and Slack.
Yeah.
Do you give clients access to the ClickUp board? And also, you mentioned you communicate via Slack, but what if they if they have access to ClickUp and they post comments in there, how do you manage the communication?
Yeah, it varies project to project. So our one-off projects and our retainer projects are treated a little bit differently. For ClickUp, a lot of times on retainer projects, we have clients that actually have a form that allows them to submit things to ClickUp as they need, and allows them to also reprioritize tasks as needed. With something like this, with one-off projects, what we do is Emmanuel will essentially put all the milestones and key deliverables in ClickUp along with the dependencies. And then he'll generate a read-only link for the client to be able to just have visibility that they can click on anytime. And it's helpful not only for like the main stakeholders, but sometimes there's like broader stakeholders in the mix that just want to know where things are at. And so it's really critical that you have great project management like we do with them to actually keep that updated and in one place.
Just to jump in there too, their master is at Slack too. We personally, I would say run 95% of all our decisions at Huberman Lab over iMessage and a little bit over email. So we don't use any, if you have an Android, we'll accommodate. But the all iMessage, email, and so I was hesitant at first to use Slack just because it's just another tool that then you have to be in. But they've done a masterful job at breaking things down clearly, asking here's what needs to be reviewed, setting deadlines. So it was great.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm curious how you guys structure the retainer process, if you knew that was going to be like part of it, like the ongoing support from the start, or if that's something that you upsold later, and if that's something you typically do.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. So the MO that I take when building websites is like, I think that clients, especially if you're moving to Webflow, you should have the ability and autonomy to be able to manage the website on your own. It's the whole premise of the platform overall. And so it feels weird to not be able to enable a client to be able to manage the website on their own. And to be honest, I think a mix of this is the Huberman Lab team is like 6 or 7 people. It's a small team. And so they're very hyper-focused on what they're working on. We did not set out to be agency of record and continue working with them. But it just ended up that way because they want to focus on what they do best, which is like their actual content business. And, we are able to help step in for design, development, strategy, things like that, alongside Double Up. And so for all projects, we never really set out for retainers. It just ends up, if they need the support, that we're happy to help. But like the goal and the thing we tell developers is like you should build this so that anyone can be able to jump in and build with components and things like that. Because otherwise, we're not doing a good service to our clients. Sure, Penny.
So you said that you use Airtable
Uh-huh.
to sync. When you're creating new items to go in, is that sort of always syncing? And what are you using to sync?
Yeah.
Adding new items into the system, is it being done through Airtable and then syncing, or is it being done right in Webflow?
It's a mix. We use WhaleSync to sync both bidirectionally between Airtable and Webflow, and so that gets used quite often. Sometimes, do you actually know? I actually don't know the answer to that one. Are we managing it in Airtable or Webflow?
So I can. Yeah, some of the updates I'll push them right in Webflow, go right to Airtable. I'd say the stuff that which also support from Double Up, manage in Airtable, is a lot of the indexing that goes to Algolia.
Yeah.
There's a script that runs that takes all of that and pushes it to the Algolia index. So all the timestamps, which there's now probably thousands of, only exist in Airtable.
Yeah.
So those are not in Webflow native. Yeah.
So then, just to follow up, the new imagery that's created for a new item, how is that done? Is that sort of done by the client through Airtable, or is that something that you support them with through?
So it's a mix. So it depends if it's like a new CMS item or a page or things like that. If we're creating designs, we'll do that in-house. But sometimes the Cycom Media team has a really talented photographer, Mike Blayback. And a lot of times, it's actually a really nice thing about working with the Cycom team. Any asset that we needed, photography-wise, video-wise, anything, they have just a killer team. And so we could just request what we needed, and they'd be able to provide that. Yeah, it was a dream scenario for us. But yeah, it's a mix. Any other questions? Final one. Sure.
So it seemed like Huberman Lab was pretty integrated in the kind of project as far as like giving weekly updates to them and stuff. But
Totally.
whenever you have a client that perhaps isn't as responsive as that and just wants to see the end product, how do you change up your workflows?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if they're not as involved or don't want to be as involved. We try to flesh that out early on in the sales process because we try to have actually a pretty high disqualification rate of clients that we don't work with. Because what we want is actually a partnership with our clients. Like we want to actually help try to bring things to life together. Now, that doesn't mean that we haven't had clients that are like that. And in those instances, we try to take the reins just a lot more because we know that they're not going to be responsive and involved. So we just need to be much more prescriptive about our approach, which we still try to be in a partnership because we have a lot of expertise and experience. But if they're not responsive, then we try to take a very strong stance on our decisions. And if they disagree with those decisions, then they can actually become more responsive in the project and jump in. So. Sure. How much time do we have left? This timer's not working. Okay.
So on our platform, a lot of agencies struggle giving adequate or timely updates to their clients. Do you guys have a specific strategy on how often to give like updates to like the Huberman team?
Yeah. So in the ongoing projects, we were giving updates a few times a week. But I know right now, so how it works is on Mondays and Fridays, we give a large update, especially on Fridays, because like Ian said, they're shipping new episodes on Mondays, and so we want to make sure that everything's ready to go in a state that's ready to publish on the website. It depends. Some clients actually can get overwhelmed with too many updates, and so we also just try to ask about like what's the best cadence, and also what do you actually prefer as a way of receiving updates. Some clients just they really want calls. We were selling a project last week that we ended up closing. And their main thing was like, they were like, will you get on a Zoom call with us like during the project? I'm like, absolutely. Like I was like, what agencies were you working with before that would refuse to talk to you? And so it depends. That was really important to them. They're maybe a little bit more old school. And so it is more suited towards that specific client, but we try to skew more towards more updates than less. And then if it becomes overwhelming, we'll dial it back.
Does your PM just create a schedule for themselves based on each client, though?
Yeah. Sure.
Hello. Okay. Just to follow up on kind of like the fleshing out communication styles with clients.
Sure.
Do you have any strategy when you're in the sales process to kind of eke out whether or not they're going to be a communicative client or not? Because I feel like a lot of people in the sales process can say like, yes, 100%. I can't wait, absolutely. And then you're like stuck trying to get feedback for 2 months from a client that will just periodically email you back.
Yeah.
So I guess like strategies to get that out of the client during the sales process.
Totally. Well, one thing, just from a pure logistical perspective, is in our contracts, we have mandatory response periods. And so like clients have to respond to the things that we send over. Otherwise, we're deeming them accepted. And that's kind of, it rarely actually has to get used. In fact, I don't even know if we've ever had to enforce that. But it is there so that it just protects you as an agency owner for clients that are just completely unresponsive. But the not so great answer is like, it's kind of just a vibe check of like with them early on in the process. Like we have some clients that I could tell, like it's interesting, if they come in video off, very quiet, that's probably going to be how the rest of the project goes as well. There's just something about, I think I've just like put in the reps over the last 10 years of just doing sales call after sales call. I think just intuitively, which I know is not a very helpful answer, intuitively I've just been able to just try to pick up as much as possible. But I think you could probably tell just based off of their mannerisms and how much information they're willing to give you. Also, a good sign is like how much homework have they done themselves? How much are they coming to the call with? If they don't know the answer to any of my questions about their website, it's probably going to stay that way during the project. And so working with someone like Ian knew the back of his web, or the full scope of the website and everything going on like the back of his hand. And so like very different experience there versus like maybe a marketing leader at a company that doesn't actually know what's going on, so to speak.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Do you feel like video call versus traditional phone call assists you in the vibe check?
I hate phone calls so much. It's like the bane of my existence. I won't pick up. My phone's constantly in Do Not Disturb. And it's very rare that like we give cell phone numbers out to clients. And so I very much so prefer video calls, but I think that's personal preference. I've had some clients and some leads. We had a very, very large multi-billion-dollar company like CMO reach out and fill out our form. And she was just like, here's my cell phone number, give me a call. And in that case, you're kind of just like, you gotta give them a call. There's no like, hey, here's my Calendly, like, let's set up a Zoom call. What works for you? You just need to pick up the phone. And so, it just depends.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll call it there. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for listening. And it was great to see you all.
Thank you.